We've got rocket ships, touchscreen tablets, and AI slop videos so optimized they can make your brain feel like it has a refresh button. But none of that works unless one very strange thing happened first. Humans learn to trust numbers. And that sounds obvious now. Of course 2 plus 2 equals 4. Of course a rocket needs equations. Of course your phone knows exactly where your finger touched the glass. But for most of human history, the world wasn't made of equations. It was made of animals that ran away, grain that spoiled, rivers that flooded, and stars that moved whether anyone understood them or not. So when did we discover math? Was it invented by some genius in a robe? Did it begin when someone scratched marks into bone? Or was math already sitting inside the world, waiting for a creature anxious enough to count? Imagine a person before cities, writing, or money, standing near a small herd. They don't need algebra. They need to know if all the goats came back. One goat missing isn't an abstract philosophical problem. It's dinner walking into the bushes. The first math may have been matching. One pebble for one sheep. One notch for one day. One finger for one child. Not number as a beautiful idea yet, but number as a survival alarm. If the marks and the animals stop matching, something's gone wrong. That's why the oldest mathematical artifacts feel so humble. The Ashango bone, found near the border of modern Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, is covered in notches and is often dated to around 20,000 years ago. Scholars still debate exactly what it was for. Counting, calendars, lunar cycles, a teaching tool? But the important part is this: someone cared enough about quantity to store it outside their own head. That's a giant leap. The moment a number leaves your brain and becomes a mark in the world, math starts becoming a technology. Once humans settled into farms and cities, counting stopped being optional. You can't run a granary on vibes. You can't tax a field by squinting at it. You can't trade beer, wool, land, and labor if everyone gets to remember the deal differently. In ancient Mesopotamia, people pressed symbols into clay tablets to track goods, debts, and rations. Before writing became poetry, law, and epic stories about kings, it was often bookkeeping. That's not an insult. Bookkeeping is one of the weirdest superpowers humans ever created. It lets a community remember who owes what after the people involved have gone home, lied, died, or forgotten. This is where math becomes social. A number isn't just 3 goats. It becomes 3 goats owed to this temple, or 3 measures of grain stored for winter. Math lets strangers coordinate. It lets power scale. It lets a city know itself. And here's the first uncomfortable twist. Math didn't only come from curiosity. The same skill that lets us build bridges also lets a ruler measure your harvest. The word geometry literally points toward measuring the earth. In ancient Egypt, the Nile flooded and redrew the edges of fields. If the river erases your boundary line, someone has to rebuild the property map. That means measuring lengths, angles, and areas. Not because triangles are elegant, although they are, but because 2 farmers are about to argue over dirt. This is one of the best things about early math. It keeps pretending to be practical until suddenly it becomes cosmic. Measure a field long enough, and you discover shapes. Watch shadows long enough, and you discover angles. Track the seasons long enough, and you discover cycles. Agriculture pushes you toward astronomy, because planting too early or too late can ruin everything. So math grows from the ground upward. Grain, rope, shadows, stars. And here's the second twist. Math begins as a tool for messy physical life, but the cleaner the tool becomes, the less physical it feels. A triangle scratched in sand is imperfect, but the idea of a triangle can be perfect. No actual line is infinitely thin. No real circle is flawless. Yet the mind can imagine one. This is where math starts getting eerie. Lots of cultures calculated beautifully, but Greek mathematicians helped make another thing central: proof. Not just, this method worked yesterday, but this must be true, and here's why. That shift matters because proof turns math into something stronger than experience. Experience says, every triangle I measured had angles that behaved this way. Proof says, it can't be otherwise. That's a different kind of confidence, almost a different kind of reality. Think about how strange that is. A human sitting in a room can reason about every possible triangle, including triangles that no one has drawn and no one ever will draw. That's the moment math stops being only a counting tool and starts becoming a way to make invisible worlds obey rules. This is also why math feels discovered. When you prove something, it doesn't feel like you made it up. It feels like you uncovered a locked door that was already there. Nobody voted the Pythagorean theorem into existence. It's not a fashion trend. It doesn't care whether a king likes it. But we still choose the symbols. We choose the definitions. We choose what questions to ask. So math is starting to look like a strange partnership. Reality provides patterns, and humans build languages sharp enough to catch them. If counting starts with having things, zero is the terrifying thought of having none. That sounds simple now, because children learn it early. But zero as a full mathematical idea took a long time to mature. Many cultures used placeholders and positional systems. But in India, mathematicians developed zero into a number with rules. Brahmagupta, in the 7th century, wrote about operations involving zero and negative numbers. This wasn't just a cute symbol. It was a new piece of machinery for thought. Zero lets place value systems breathe. It lets 101 mean something different from 11. It lets absence become part of calculation. And eventually, through long chains of translation, trade, scholarship, and empire, zero helps make the modern number system portable across the world. Now look at your touchscreen. Every tap is coordinates. Every image is grids of values. Every video is compressed through mathematical guesses about what your eye won't notice. Computers run on bits, switches, zeros, and ones. The modern world is partly a cathedral built out of nothing. Your phone saying zero notifications isn't a small thing. It's the ghost of an ancient breakthrough, blinking at you from a rectangle of glass. Counting tells you what you have. Geometry tells you how space behaves. Algebra does something sneakier. It lets you reason with what you don't know yet. That's a massive psychological upgrade. Instead of freezing when a quantity is missing, algebra says, fine, call it X, keep moving. The word algebra comes through Arabic from al-Jabr, associated with the work of al-Khwarizmi in the 9th century. In the Islamic Golden Age, scholars preserved, combined, challenged, and extended mathematical knowledge from Greek, Indian, Persian, and other traditions. This isn't a single torch passed neatly from one civilization to another. It's more like a network of people translating the universe into increasingly reusable tools. Algebra is why problems can become portable. A merchant problem, a land problem, an inheritance problem, and a motion problem can all share a structure. Strip away the goats, fields, and coins, and suddenly the same hidden skeleton appears. This is the part of math that feels almost unfair. It reveals that completely different situations can be secretly the same. For most of history, math handled things that sat still better than things that moved. But the world doesn't sit still. Planets move, apples fall, blood flows, markets swing, rockets accelerate. To build the modern world, humans needed math that could catch change in the act. Calculus, developed in the 17th century by Newton and Leibniz in different forms, gave us a language for motion, accumulation, slopes, and rates. It's hard to overstate how much this matters. Physics becomes sharper, engineering becomes more powerful. Later, electricity, aerodynamics, control systems, orbital mechanics, and machine learning all inherit pieces of this ability to model change. That rocket ship isn't a triumph of metal alone. It's math wearing fire. And AI slop videos? Underneath the weird hands, uncanny faces, and endless content machines, there's linear algebra, probability, optimization, and statistics. The same species that once scratched notches into bone now builds systems that predict the next pixel, next word, next click. This is funny and alarming. We discovered enough math to land robots on Mars, and then immediately used some of it to make infinite videos of fake celebrities eating spaghetti. Humanity is majestic and unserious at the exact same time. So did we discover math or invent it? Here's the honest answer. Both. And the border is slippery. We discover patterns. 2 stones and 2 stones make 4 stones whether or not a human is impressed. The orbit of a planet has structure. A sunflower has spirals. A sound wave has frequency. The world gives us regularities, but we invent the language. We invent symbols, axioms, coordinate systems, algorithms, proof styles, notation, and entire mathematical games. Sometimes those invented games later turn out to describe reality with spooky accuracy. Mathematicians explore imaginary spaces, and decades later physicists or engineers find those spaces useful. That's why math feels less like a tool and more like a conversation between mind and world. We ask a question in symbols. Reality answers in consequences. So when did we discover math? Not on one day, not in one country, not with one genius. We discovered it in layers. We discovered one-to-one matching when survival depended on noticing what was missing. We discovered records when memory became too small for cities. We discovered geometry when land, sky, and property needed measurement. We discovered proof when humans wanted truth that could outlive the person saying it. We discovered zero when absence became a number. We discovered algebra when the unknown got a handle. We discovered calculus when motion needed a grammar. And every layer made the next world possible. Without math, a tablet is just glass. A rocket is just a tube full of regret. AI is just electricity having a panic attack. The modern world doesn't sit on top of math like a decoration, it's threaded through it. The weirdest part is that math began with very human anxieties. Did all my animals come back? How much grain is left? Where does my field end? When will the river rise? From those fears came the language that lets us touch the moon, encrypt a message, simulate a storm, and waste an afternoon watching algorithmic nonsense. So maybe math was never simply discovered or invented. Maybe math is what happens when the universe has patterns and a nervous little ape starts keeping score.